Hey, welcome back to the Mindful Minute. My name is Ashley Molina and I'm a certified holistic health coach. And today in this episode of the Mindful Minute, I want to talk to you about coffee. The purpose of the Mindful Minute is to educate and empower you on your journey towards a healthier lifestyle. I am personally very passionate about the topic of coffee because I've been a barista for years. I have loved being a barista and getting into the culture of coffee. Working in coffee shops has allowed me to get through college and move to different states and still be able to have a great job. I've made so many great connections in coffee, and I truly believe coffee is amazing because of the culture and the community that surrounds it. So I'm really excited to talk about coffee today. There's so many drinks out there today that are just filled with like sugar and chemicals and dyes and stabilizers and all this junk. And coffee is just coffee, depending on what you put in it, which is something we're going to talk about today. But coffee on its own is actually really great for you in a lot of ways. So I don't believe that coffee is bad for you. So in this video, I want to give you the basics surrounding coffee, so the positives and some of the perceived negatives and how it affects the body. I also want to discuss how to be more mindful when you're making choices with your coffee order in a coffee shop or if you're making your coffee by yourself. And I want to show you how I make my iced coffee at home in a very low sugar but sweet and delicious way. People love coffee because it is a stimulant. So a stimulant is a substance that raises the physiological and nervous systems in the body. Caffeine blocks an inhibitory neurotransmitter in the brain, and this causes us to have better energy, mood levels, and better attention span, which is why most of us love coffee. Coffee can also help burn fat. It's a really great pre-workout for going into the gym instead of shaking up some of those pre-workouts that have like a lot of dye and junk in them that you don't need. Coffee is a really great pre-workout for going into the gym, and it's been shown to actually burn more fat and increase your physical endurance in the gym. Several studies show that coffee drinkers have lower risk of Alzheimer's disease and cancer. This is most likely due to the fact that coffee has a very high antioxidant load, which is great for fighting disease and aging. So coffee is amazing and it does a lot of great things. But on the flip side of that, the way it affects the body can sometimes be negative, especially for people who are already dealing with a lot of stress in their life or have anxiety. So coffee actually triggers the fight or flight response in the body. So you get cortisol starting to pump through the body and the sympathetic nervous system is turned on. This signals to the body that you're in stress mode. And so if you're someone that's already anxious or you're dealing with anxiety, I highly recommend thinking about how much coffee you take in a day. Decreasing your coffee level in a day may massively impact your anxiety or stress levels. It's also great to be aware of this as a coffee drinker, that it does increase this stress level because it can make you a lot more reactive throughout the day. And so being mindful of that really helps us to step back and think before we react to situations. This is also important for people who don't sleep very well because caffeine plays a big role in that stress response and also, of course, energy. So if you have trouble sleeping, I highly recommend sticking to 1 cup or 1 drink that has coffee in it per day and having it before noon, no later than that. So a lot of us use coffee as a crutch because we're walking around very fatigued and feeling very low energy levels, depression, anxiety, stress. And so coffee helps to like improve our mood and our energy, which is great, but it is sometimes a band-aid fix. So once we get back to the root of why we're feeling fatigued, which most of the time has to do with the standard American diet that we're eating, we're able to fix that. And then we don't have to use coffee as just a crutch, but it can be more enjoyable and it can be used in the morning or, early afternoon and not all throughout the day. So I want to give you some tips for going into the coffee shop and ordering coffee. And this is from someone who has been a barista for a long time. So I hope this is helpful for you in a sense of health, but also in a sense of walking in and feeling confident and making the decisions that you're making when you're talking to the barista. So many of us don't realize that we're getting a lot of sugar and dairy in our drinks that we're getting from the coffee shop. And sugar and dairy are 2 things that we want to limit as much as possible. I've talked about these a lot before, and if you're interested in learning more about sugar, I have a scary sugar video that you can reference on my YouTube channel, and I talk all about the effects of sugar, but plain and simple, it's very addictive and it's making you Fat. If you are someone looking to lose weight, sugar is one of the biggest culprits of fat. So most of us walk around today because of the way that we've been taught to believe, thinking that fat makes us fat. But the truth is it's sugar that's making us fat. So when you're drinking a very sugary drink in the morning, you're starting that day off with like a lot of sugar in the body that you really don't need. So we have to be really mindful about the sugar content that's going into our coffee, as well as dairy. Again, dairy is something we grew up believing was good for us. We needed it, but that's actually the opposite of the truth. Dairy is the cause of 75% of Americans' digestive issues. So if you deal with bloating, constipation, lots of gas, dairy is one of the biggest culprits of those things. The good news about trying to cut back on dairy is that alternative milks or non-dairy milks have become so popular that it's very easy to get them at a coffee shop, and it's also easy to get them and use them at home. So some of the biggest tips that I have for ordering at the coffee shop are, first of all, understanding what is even going into your drink. If you're someone that goes to Starbucks and gets a caramel latte, the first questions you want to ask are, how many pumps or how many ounces of caramel are you putting into my drink? How many shots of espresso am I getting? And is it made with whole milk, skim milk, or can I get a non-dairy alternative? So you want to understand these three things about your drink. When it comes to sugar and cutting down on that, you have to start slow. My order at Starbucks used to be iced coffee with double the amount of caramel and double the amount of cream. And now I drink my coffee black, but I don't expect everyone to drink their coffee black either. Although it is really amazing if you're getting quality coffee. So when I first started switching and realizing that I was like inundating my body with sugar and dairy, I went to the coffee shop and I went back to regular amount of caramel, no double. From there, I was getting 4 pumps of caramel at the time, and then I asked them the next time for 3 pumps. And then I went down to 2 pumps and 1 pump, and then I stuck with that 1 pump for most of the time. And then instead of using double cream, I just used a little bit of cream. And then over time, I started to get into black coffee. Yes, it takes time, and yes, your taste buds do have to adjust, but it is so worth it. So just cutting back on caramel, mocha, vanilla, whatever you get in your coffee, just cutting back on how much they're putting into your coffee can have dramatic effects for you. A lot of times people are buying coffees in the morning and they think it's gonna wake them up, and it does for about an hour, but because they got a syrup or sugar in it, your blood sugar level ends up going way up and then way down. And this is why after about an hour or two, you start to feel this major crash and feel like you need another coffee or an energy drink to get you going. You're actually counteracting the caffeine effect by consuming so much sugar in the drink. So the first tip is to definitely make sure that you know how much sugar is going into the drink and try to start limiting that as much as you can. The second step is assessing the dairy situation. One big thing that I see is a lot of people think that getting skim milk is better for them than getting whole milk because it has less fat, and they think that's healthier, right? The truth is that's actually not healthier, and that's because whole milk has the fat and the sugar together, whereas the skim milk is missing the fat. So when you're consuming sugar and you're also consuming fat with it, it keeps the blood sugar level a lot more stable. When you're consuming this milk that has sugar and water essentially and lactose and has no fat in it, your blood sugar level is going to skyrocket. Having whole milk actually keeps you fuller longer too because it has that fat, so you don't drink as much, whereas the skim is very easy to drink because there's no fat filling you up. So you want to stick to whole milk if you are going to do dairy. I definitely recommend doing the whole over the skim, but switching to alternative milks is also a really great option. So most coffee shops today are carrying almond milk and soy milk. Those are two that I see the most often. Other than that, there's also coconut milk, and one that's become super popular that I absolutely love is oat milk. So it's made out of oats, and to me, it's the creamiest and tastes the most like dairy whenever it's steamed on a steam wand and put into a hot drink. So see if your local coffee shop has oat milk, and if it does, you should definitely try that. But try out any non-dairy alternative and see how you feel about it. If you get a drink with almond milk for the first time and you drink it and you're like, this is terrible and I don't like it, please go back to the barista and let them know this was your first time trying it and you really don't like it. Can you please try something else? And they would be more than happy to allow that. They just want to hear that you're trying something new, and they'll be totally fine with remaking you something. So those are some things that you should definitely look out for whenever you're ordering coffee, and this can be such a game changer for people when it comes to their sugar and dairy intake specifically. Just cutting down on these things can help you to lose weight, help you to feel less fatigued, and just enjoy your coffee a little bit more because you're getting some of the flavors that come from it naturally. So I now want to show you how I make my iced coffee at home. I've been doing this for a while and it seems a little bit unconventional because I'm going to use maple syrup, but it's absolutely amazing and I really hope you'll try it out, and I'm going to explain why I use maple syrup while we do this. Okay, so I'm using cold brew, which is really, really great, but you can use like any kind of iced coffee that you want, and this is just black. It's super delicious, and I'm going to use that. I'm going to use some maple syrup. This is not Mrs. Butterworth's maple syrup. This is pure maple syrup. So maple syrup is used a lot as a sweetener in like baking and cooking when it comes to a healthier lifestyle because it has trace minerals in it, first of all. So it hasn't been stripped or refined or bleached. So you're getting a little bit of nutritional content out of it. And it's also incredibly sweet, which is why I love using it in coffee because I only need a little bit to get the sweetness that I'm craving. So we're gonna use pure maple syrup, and then this I absolutely love. So it's called Milkadamia, and it's a non-dairy alternative milk. It's made from macadamia nuts, and it's naturally sweet because if you've ever had a macadamia nut, they are naturally sweet. They have a sweet flavor to them. So when they make it into a milk, it has this amazing sweet taste with no sugar. So this is vanilla, but no sugar added. They have a couple other options too, but I found it in a few different local stores. Like I've seen it in Walmart before, I've seen it in Target, I get it at Fresh Time, and I just absolutely love it. So it's called Milkadamia. It's made with raw macadamia nuts and coconut cream, and it has no added sugar in it. So I absolutely love it. It's very creamy and it has a really good sweet flavor to it. Okay, so I'm gonna pour my cold brew first and leave myself a little bit of room. And then I use about a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of the maple syrup. I don't measure it. I just start with a little bit at a time and taste it as you go because like I said, it is very sweet. So you don't want to overly sweeten it. I'm just gonna put a little bit in there. And I'm gonna take the Milkadamia, shake it up real good. And I put about an inch. Of course, if you like more, you can put more. Yeah. I love that pour. Okay, and then one of my biggest tips here is to go ahead like you're a bartender and hit it back and forth between a couple of mason jars or cups, and this helps all of the flavors and the maple syrup to really like dissolve into it. Just like that. Yes. So good. So if you like it a little sweeter, you can add a little more maple syrup. Obviously, you can add more cream if you'd like it, but it's super tasty. And whenever I feel like I do want something like sweet and an iced coffee, this is a really easy, low sugar, healthy way to make it at home. So I hope this was helpful whenever you go to the coffee shop or when you're making decisions surrounding the coffee that you drink. And I hope that you understand that lessening your sugar and dairy intake can have massive benefits for your lifestyle. And I hope this empowers you to start being more mindful surrounding all of those choices when it comes to coffee. Cheers.